Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
I don't know.
Yes.
Can you hear us? Okay. Alexander says no.
I said yes.
I didn't prepare questions. I didn't know that. I thought the format would be more just questions for the hierarchs and so on. So we'll just, I was gonna say, yeah, why don't we just start with just thoughts? Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So anything that, you want to start, Eminence?
We have, speaking of the IPAs, we have parishes in Atlanta and also in Akron. So we are aware of this, and we find that it's a very useful thing, not only useful in the sense that it's pragmatic, but also in the sense that it helps to build in the community the reality that Orthodoxy is one. So I think for us it's a good step forward, and now, as Father Anton said, we're hoping that the one in New Jersey will also take place. And then I saw also a number of other parishes, because in my diocese I'm U.S. and Canada. Well, Canada's a different assembly of bishops, but that means I have parishes in 25 states. So I'm ready to write for all those parishes, but we're going to wait for you to get moving on them.
Yeah, I'm bothering His Eminence for almost every IPA. He's one of the ones that has to write for all of them. Anything east of the Mississippi, also Metropolitan Gregory has. It's complicated, but yeah, we appreciate.
I'm just gonna write my signature and give it to you. You can fill them out as needed.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
It's very interesting listening today. We appreciate the invitation. I didn't know I was going to be on the speaker booth, but here I am. But I think something that's very important for all of us to understand starts with the church itself. What does Jesus call us to do?
To be one. To be one.
Where does he invite us to? Say that again? The banquet. Stop and think for all of us. Who do you let come into your house? Anybody? Or, and I put in kind of quotes, family. It's family. That's part of the reality of how we do things. And Jesus calls us to the common table. Okay? We come into the church, and one of the goals, hopefully, is that we will be prepared to eat from the common meal, that very body and blood of our Lord, to receive communion. We're called together. And when we come into that church, it doesn't make any difference which part of Romania you were born in or want to be associated with, or Greece, or anything else. All that matters is that you're there. You're there together. And that's the first most important issue to remember. I would just like to, make a simple suggestion. Okay?
Ready for it.
The priests are here. We have some priests here. How many of you are from Michigan? Raise your hand. Thank you. Now, for the clergy, when was the last time we went out to dinner?
2 weeks ago,
With where?
with priests from the area.
Where?
At the Greek restaurant on 22 Mile in Gresham in Chesterfield.
Who went?
It was me, Father George, Father Stefan, and Father Karcazes,
Okay.
with the protesta.
Okay. But was the Archbishop there?
No.
Was I there? No. Were the Greek priests hanging around there? One of the base issues that we have to look at, if we want this, this parish association to work, we have to look at the reality that our priests, who are very busy, under normal circumstances are very busy, you know, and you never know when you're working in the office, if, when, how you're gonna have lunch, if you're gonna have lunch, okay? We don't always know that. I have a funeral today, I got a hospital call tomorrow, I've got a meeting, I gotta fly out here, I gotta drive. You don't know what's happening, okay? But the first issue for this to work well, I believe, is going to start with a greater connection among the clergy. And to represent that in a broader way, I would say the priest and the head of the parish council, to have some kinds of gatherings, to have some kinds of meetings, not to simply talk all the time about church stuff, just first become friends, become comfortable working with each other and talking to each other, because we don't always have that. Sometimes, and this reality is that if we can work together closely, at least, you know, I see you how often? Yeah.
6 times a year.
Okay, good. Where do you live?
Yes,
Where do you live? Where do you live?
I live in Michigan.
I know. Where do I live?
Michigan.
When was the last time we had dinner?
Michigan.
You see the point? This is where most of this has to start. There has to be a family, a communal relationship amongst the clergy and the parish leaders, so that we're not worried. It's not just, oh, we had a Pan-Orthodox Vespers over here. You know, they're usually doing that once a year. And where's that going to go to? We need first a sense that, you know, I'm going to see the neighboring priest more often. Vorbești românescă? Yes, I know. Okay, you're from Cluj. I'm not blaming you. You could be from Sibiu, but you're from Cluj. But my point is, it's going to start from there. We have to do that, and we have to have some kinds of gatherings first, because what this has to build up is a sense of trust. A sense of trust and the reality that we are brothers working together. And if the parish council leadership is from a woman, then we are brothers and sisters, okay? But the point is, we're family. And that's one of the essential issues that's missing. If we want this to really work well, the clergy have to be comfortable in each other's homes as well. And by each other's homes there, I mean feeling at home going to one church or the other, before we start trying to move the people around. Because that's not going to help them if we're not comfortable and we don't have that positive reinforcement for what's happening. So that's the start of my concern. It means that it's not going to be so simple to just, you know, write a document, okay, we are united now. That's not going to work, okay? Because even, you know that, even in some of the parishes, regardless of where they are, Romanian, Antiochian, Greek, doesn't make any difference. Some parishes sometimes also, if the neighbors have a sense of, you're taking my parishioner, you're taking my this, we don't want to have that either, okay? Why are you doing the baptism over there? Why didn't you come over to this church? We don't need that either. We need to feel like it's one family. And that has got to be ultimately the start of what is happening. And so I think it starts, Archbishop Nathaniel, I think it starts from us as clergy, from the fact that we haven't sat down to lunch with now. I've had some health issues, so I haven't been available all the time. But the point is, we haven't made any effort. And we have to take that liability too. And we have to start that, to demonstrate to our clergy, this is good. So that our clergy occasionally can come with us too. This is good. And then the clergy and the parish can open together and work together among the various parishes. You have to be able to feel at home. And it's not just a once a year, Vespers of Orthodoxy kind of thing. It's got to be the idea of moving some guest speakers, some seminars around. That works, okay? Now, to be fair to the parishes too, Everybody's watching their budget. And we understand that. And what does it mean if you bring somebody in? Is there food? Is there this? Is there that? What happens? Are you bringing a guest in? How does that work? I don't know. But we have to sit down and talk about that. In order to make this work, we have to first, it's not to me simply about the wider parish, it's also about the local inside administration. And when the hierarchs, when are we gonna have dinner?
Michigan.
Yeah, but when? We'll figure out, okay? We'll have to figure out now. And sit down and look at that for ourselves too, so that we can talk about it too, aside from this. That is, to me, an important issue. It's very important. The idea of the parishes working together and collaborating is extraordinarily good. It's not always as simple as we tried to make it, I think. I don't know. Because it deals with family. And until you're comfortable, until you feel like family in the next parish, it's hard to feel that we should do everything there or here or whatever, however it's going to be done. We have to work together, but we have to start from ourselves as well. And so I start that responsibility with the local hierarchs. I bring that to the clergy in the areas too, because we know there's several areas here in the Michigan, the Metropolitan Michigan area, where there's some parishes closer together that work together. We gotta do that. And bring the priests together, but not just the priests, there's got to be some lay people too. So that we have, you know, clergy and lay people together, sensing the reality that they're eating at the table together and they really are family. And to me, that is going to be perhaps the most important part of the start.
Your Eminence, I'm very happy to hear you say that. I think that's absolutely critical too. And one of the things OCL has discussed is sponsoring roundtables in locations for priests and parish council presidents. My question is, a lot of times my experience is that priests, I'm from the GOA, priests are very hesitant to do anything unless they have direction from their bishops. My question to you, would you be willing to send a letter to all of your priests in your jurisdiction, in your metropolis, telling them to participate in a roundtable discussion for the purpose of identifying common parish problems that OCL would sponsor?
Well, I don't know that I'd send a letter. I know that I would talk to them. To be fair, I like tone and gesture. I like to talk with somebody. So just to be on the record, okay? But secondly, my first issue is, before they're going to sit and talk about that, they have to know each other. They have to have their own little meal. How can I put it differently? They have to have their time together when they get to make a joke and laugh and you know, and say something funny and be okay. And know that they have the confidence and the trust of their partners in ministry before they start replanning some of this. That's where my concern is coming from. That the reality to me is that the priests are not sensing a sense of brotherhood with the clergy and the parishes perhaps as well. But that's what we need to start. So the idea of the round table I like, but what it's going to discuss initially, I'm not certain. I think the first issue is to come and let them say who they are. Talk about what they're looking for.
What if we help sponsor something just for that purpose? Just to get
I'm not against that. I'm just telling you where I'm coming from. From my sense, we need to have the priests feel like, I feel like with Nick Anton, okay? I've known him a number of years. Father Nick Anton, pardon me. I apologize greatly. Forgive me.
It's just the title. My name is Nick.
Okay, forgive me. So, the point is that, okay? I can sit and have an open conversation with him. I'm not afraid. But I may not be able to do it with you. Imagine that. You see my point? I know, we know each other. And we have to know the priests better too, amongst ourselves. And the priests and the lay leaders have to have a sense of confidence in the other parishes too. They're not trying to take away my parishioners. We have to have that. before we try and say we're doing all of these things together. The first issue, I'm not saying it's going to take years, but I'm saying it's going to take a couple of months for the priests, the clergy, and the lay leaders to have a sense of we're really at the Lord's table.
So how do we start that? Well, I guess the question is, we
He wants to talk, he wants to answer.
as laity, can we help in that? Or is that something that has to be done strictly among priests and hierarchy?
Well, I think that the priests are going to want to hear the bishop encourage this.
Yeah.
And then when the bishop encourages it, the priests are going to be comfortable doing it, and they can start. But I will tell you, the first 2 or 3 times that they sit and meet, they're really going to be learning about each other. They might learn their history, they might learn a difficulty that I had in a parish, you know. I've got some stories that I tell people about my time as a priest too. Okay, not just as a bishop, as a priest. So there's that fundamental time period when there's a sharing among the clergy and the lay leaders together, you know, perhaps individually with the clergy, but then together, so that there's a sense of trust. That's what the issue is. It's not just an artificial, well, I'm a church, so you can trust me. No, I'm a person and you know me.
I love what you're saying, I really do, and I'm excited about that. My question is, do you believe that other bishops agree with your philosophy?
I've never discussed it with anybody, but sitting here and listening to what's going on and trying to understand how to make, I know that from our own clergy, that my clergy that work together, they love each other. That's not an issue. But let's ask our Archbishop, what do you think?
Yeah, of course, my diocese is much smaller, and especially in the Detroit area. So the 4 clergy who went out to dinner at the Greek restaurant, but they do work together as far as that goes. So as far as reaching out and saying, is there? I think there was or might still be a clergy association. I don't know that it's too active, but so those things were there, but it's not gelling and not going further at this point. So yes, of course, that's the way to do it. Is the clergy have to be knowledgeable of one another, feel comfortable with one another, at least know who they are. And then I agree, though, Bill. The idea was to work out to have the lay leaders of the parish, along with the parish priests, to meet each other in a group, so that is also a foundation for the knowing one another and working further.
And you know, my sense is, I may be wrong, but my sense is that we're still in this kind of post-COVID problematic, where everything got shut down. And you know, I was laughing the other day. I was driving somewhere and there's a bus, and the bus says, masks not required but encouraged. And
I think that,
Just wanted to add, yes, thank you. I don't know who said it, but yeah, what you were saying about kind of these round tables, I think that's 100% possible, and that's kind of the vision within the Inter-Parish Association, so I'd love to work together. To His Eminence's point, obviously you need the clergy to get to know each other and be this family, and the laity as well, and then once you have that trust, exactly as His Eminence has said, then you can build. And so this is where we're trying to provide then that opportunity for, as you said, a round table to think about what is next. So providing like the strategic visioning or people that do that. So there's also people in your network we can work together. But that's the goal of the Inter-Parish Association, is exactly that. How do we get people to the table and then to actually have these conversations around setting these goals? Thank you.
I got it was just mentioned in my experience in the life of the church. The clergy associations are so important. That, Your Eminence, that's a very important step. But they don't work. I see it all over where I live, and other places where I've lived. They have clergy associations, but they're not family. They don't. Somehow they need to be encouraged from the hierarchy or some level to become family.
but you know what I think part of it is? They first have to be able to sit at some point at the table together and just talk, and not come in on a Wednesday at 11 o'clock for a meeting. because that's a meeting, it's an appointment, I'm coming and I'm going. There has to be that opportunity to share the heart and the soul.
But they have to be encouraged that it's not.
Not
working.
disagreeing, I'm not disagreeing.
Who does that? Where does that
Well,
start?
I don't know, but you know, I'm open
That's the
to
hope.
pushing that more.
I won't bring that into the mix because you would certainly never mix public media and spirituality. In fact, there might be a little bit of oil and water there. There is an element that is done there that we should learn from. And what I mean by that is there's a focus on going to your audience. And so you'll hear this if you were to be in media circles, you hear all the time, go to your audience. When I look at the church, I've been a member of the cathedral since birth, we don't do a great job of going to our audience. We expect the audience, in this case parishioners, folks who want to attend services, to come to us. That might have worked 100 years ago, maybe even 50 years ago, but today, when you look at the numbers, you can tell it's not working. Don't quote me, I think membership or attendance at some kind of spiritual center in the United States used to be 70% in 2000 or maybe 1995. Today it's measured below 40. That's just in 20 years. Look in this room. Who do you see here who's young? I'll accept the lovely Kaluger family over there who's helping in the kitchen. Who's here? Who's here that's representing anybody under the age of 40? Let's be honest. When you look at our church,
I represent.
we don't have, we're not meeting our audience where they're at. And this isn't meant as an indictment, it's meant as something we need to learn from. When we look at our church pews, we often see a bunch of small children who are coming with their families. Once they're older and they can make their own decisions, we don't see many of them. And I see that all the time in our church, and maybe our church isn't a great representation of that. And allow me one small example of that. My son, who's fully Romanian, I'm fully Romanian, I understand the language, he understands only a little bit. He'll come to church every couple of weeks. He doesn't totally identify with it, but he's a Christian, very fervent believer, Jesus, God, for sure. His girlfriend, he brings to church every once in a while. She is loosely Catholic, kind of Irish background, doesn't go to Catholic church, doesn't understand anything that goes on here. And that isn't, again, an indictment, but we're not easy to pick up. And we don't offer a lot of bridges. We ask everyone to come to us. We have to go to the audience, in this case, the great body of people, even if only a fraction of which we'd like to be part of our family. We have to focus on going to them. And that starts with our youth, who, given all the options they have, unfortunately, are usually not picking the church. They're picking every other thing going on in the world, social media, friends, other entertainment. It's just a fact of life that we need to go to them and not expect them to come to us. So I appreciate your reaction, and thanks for hearing me out. It's a good day so far.
Fair lawn area, thank you.
Forgive me, I just walked in and I wasn't here for all of the, well, for most of this, any of the discussion. Your Eminence, Father. And I heard IPA, I came for the beer. In Akron, I won't repeat it, it's not worth it.
It was good. We liked it.
In Akron, there has been a Council of Orthodox Christians and a clergy association since the 1950s. And when I came to Akron 33 years ago, I was ordained for the parish there, and despite my best efforts, they still haven't tried to throw me out. I was amazed at the relationships between clergy. And So I think, Your Eminence, you spoke about clergy and about those relationships and about gathering to have coffee, to have lunch. We also have a monthly meeting. It's in a restaurant. We don't get our breakfast comped, unfortunately, but the food's good and the company is great. And I used to say in the early 90s, and in through, I couldn't tell you how many years, but that we functioned like a deanery. We worked like a deanery. We had programs, we had Sunday of Orthodoxy services, and a speaker, and a retreat, and a clergy retreat. We had a policy in those days that no bishops were to be the speaker of Orthodox, or the speaker for the Sunday of Orthodoxy, because that was to preserve the collegial character of the local group. But beyond that, our wives were friends. I remember sitting in the patriarchal palace in Bucharest with His Eminence and the commission on we were dialoguing with the patriarchate at that time. And some issues came up, and I kept referring back to, our relationships with other churches here, and that we can't just work unilaterally, at least philosophically we can't. And and across the table was one of the functionaries of the patriarchate there, and who said, I can't believe that it's so hard for you to be united with us, because we're an OCA parish, we're not united with the patriarch. I can't believe it's so hard for you to entertain being united for us, but you're so concerned about stereim. In Romanian, it's like xenos, strangers. And that's when it struck me. I said back across the table, Father, you don't understand, they're not strangers. They're our neighbors. They're our friends. Our kids go to school together. Our wives go out together. We have lunch together. It's a fundamentally different situation. Now, Akron is a smaller town than metropolitan Detroit. We have about 10 parishes. And 10 parishes with 10 bishops. We do the vacation church school, we do all of those kinds of things. In fact, Father Nicholas reached out to us as one of the pilot projects, along with Atlanta, one of the pilot locations for this Inter-Parish Association project. A lot depends on the relationships locally, a lot. We're going to have a webinar at the end of this month, right? About the theology of inter-parish associations. And it's curious to me, because I didn't know that we had a theology of inter-parish associations in the Orthodox Church. We have an ecclesiology that says one autonomous bishop in one city. We have that. And so I would just lay this challenge back to the three of you, Your Eminences and Father, you know me, you know that everything that I say in love and deep love for the church that I grew up in the 1970s believing was going to be united by now. I think the Inter-Parish Association project is a good one. Is a great one. I would agree with the panelists that this is probably the only way forward. I would ask, though, why it is, and I think it's not accusatory or complaining, but I think each of us should ask ourselves, what is it about a hierarchical church that has to resort to a fundamentally congregational solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. I would like to ask, sorry, Bill.
You'll get, bouncing interference if you're not at a microphone. It's making a
For the
recording.
Zoom.
Thank you, Father. You're dressed down today.
Yeah. Oh, this is dressed up for me.
I was told that my voice won't properly be recorded. So most currently, I was in the parish in St. Louis, Missouri from 82 to 99. And during that time, I believe it was around 87, 88, Your Eminence, you came to St. Louis and we went to the first OCL meeting. At least it was my first OCL meeting. It was great energy, and I saw that George had passed away this year. Karcazes, God rest his soul. But I know you were very fired up. I was amazed. And I just want to say as a footnote or a precursor to preface to your question, St. Louis was an entirely different animal than Michigan. When I was growing up in the 50s, 60s, the 70s, I'm off to college in St. Vladimir's. But what was interesting is I was so inspired by the pan-Orthodox experience. There was a solidarity, a unity, a community with the Metro Detroit area at that time. Father Hopko, Meyendorf, Schmemann, professors from Holy Cross would speak on pan-Orthodox Sundays. We had the state fair where there was inter-Orthodox activities, there were sports events, there was, I think what we were lacking to some extent was a theological articulation of the matters of the heart, but there was a sense of unity. We're getting to know each other. And Scoville was on fire anyways, Ciola in Pennsylvania in the 60s. However, what was interesting, in St. Louis, Father George Nicholzizan, God rest his soul, was the parish priest who was also a mentor. I loved him deeply. In fact, when there's, I won't go into sidebar stories. The state of the point is that there was 12 parishes. The clergy met monthly, and we realized at that time the laity were hung up on litigation about the bylaws of the Council of Orthodox Churches of St. Louis. And Father George wisely asked the brothers, said, listen, how about if we take a different approach? How about if we structure our time and our energy where each priest takes a particular area? Father Stephen, liturgical stuff. So-and-so, the media and communications. This one could be in practicing events. So we had a willingness and solidarity. We met once a week in the West End at a Greek restaurant. They're very kind. Always comped the meal.
Once a week?
Well, no, once a month. And in the meantime, we also stayed together. It was a kind of we didn't have a bishop in the state. However, Father George was like a hierarch, if you will, of an early church model. And then after a certain period, he backed off and others got involved. But what was very amazing is that I saw this experience firsthand, and I talked to other clergy since then in their local regional areas where there was a great solidarity. There's really a difference, in my opinion, of the Orthodox churches west of the Mississippi and to the east of the Mississippi. The West, there's a sense of a greater openness to the very idea of inclusion of anyone seeking the faith, they're welcome to join. The ethnocentricity that I experienced and still experience in the east of the Mississippi, I found didn't exist in St. Louis. To some extent it did, but nothing compared to east of the Mississippi. That's a cultural challenge, and God willing, that'll change. But my point is that I up to the present moment, I talked to Father George Shalhoub, who's a great builder, uniter of the Orthodox in our area. Father Lawrence Lazar was the president. I maybe call him a past president because he's retired, but he's not active. So he said, Father Lawrence is not in great health. He's retired. Can we organize something through you and Father Lawrence to have a clergy gathering for a luncheon. No meeting, just a luncheon. This was late spring of this year. The date was set, then it was reset. In August, only one clergyman responded. Only one clergyman. So it was canceled. And in fact, David, God bless him, asked me to sort of see what I could do about connecting things. We don't have a Council of Orthodox Churches anymore. I mean, we do on paper maybe, but they don't meet. So compared to past experiences in Detroit and in St. Louis, our area, I would say, is DOA. We don't exist. And I really do think, I really appreciate Metropolitan Nicholas of your willingness to break bread with Archbishop Nathaniel and perhaps have a gathering with our clergy. Maybe Father Shalhoub would be willing to entertain and host. But I think it's so critical and essential that we do rediscover one another. Because I'm good friends with a lot of clergy in the Greek Archdiocese, many of them who've retired, and I still stay friends with them. I interacted with them when I was a priest here since '99, and in other jurisdictions and other parishes. I think it's way past due. We're bigger than what we currently are, and we ought to be, if you will, an image or a model of inspiration for others. I happen to be in Traverse City as an aside, if I can steal the floor for a few more seconds. I have a dear friend of mine who's 87 years old, who's still playing ice hockey. His dad is, his son is, I should say, one of the trainers of the Red Wings. So I went up to Red Wing training camp because my friend Russ invited me. And it, unbeknownst to me, and I wish we had a newsletter or a magazine or a website out of Michigan, Orthodox Michigan, because I didn't know that St. Gabriel's, right, in Traverse City, was having the 25th anniversary. But I made it my business to make a phone call when I was up in Traverse City, and I discovered, and I talked to Father Ciprian, who's Romanian background, and I think 80% of his parish is converts. And I went for great vespers, but I couldn't stay for liturgy because I was driven up, and I had sort of obligations. But I attended the vespers. Archbishop or Metropolitan Nicholas was there with Deacon Stephen. It was beautiful, and the cantors, the psalties, the women that were singing were phenomenal. If any, I mean, there's so many things we could do jointly, and I won't go into those things. We have the rest of the day to discuss. But my point is we need to resurrect from the dead. And I guess the question on Holy Saturday, you know, in the Old Testament reading, can these bones live? Ezekiel needs to come and blow life back into us and raise us up. And until that happens, Dwam Emiliescu.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Roula Karcazes, wife of George Karcazes, who passed away. I'm not fourth generation, but my family is. My grandmother, my yaya, came here and got married. So we've been here for over 100 years. And I like what you said, George. I saw the children back there. And I have to say that when OCL started, we had many people coming to our lectures. And I was inspired many times in thinking we would be united in a few years. I've raised my children, and I have 4 grandsons. And my son and my daughter were in church all the time, altar boy, everything. I don't speak well, because my husband spoke so well, but I understand Greek. Even George wanted to see us together with English so that the 4th generation could understand. We also tried to get together with other Orthodox people. We had another organization we were involved with, Hellenic Foundation. And I was young, without children when we started it. And we reached out to bring people in, the homeless people. And we were doing it with Greek people. We didn't know, as educated as my husband and I were, we weren't brought up knowing about all the different Orthodox jurisdictions. And the women who were in OCL said we learned more about our religion by having these meetings at the beginning. I would love to know all the criticisms. We've always been criticized, generally from the people of the church, some of the hierarchy. Not specific, but just they didn't attend. I'm so happy to see that today we have more clergy here, which is wonderful. I was a little surprised when you said about calling, that you would call and try to get together with priests, but I have to say that it bothered me when we would have these organizations throughout the country, when they were in Chicago. I was trying to get people, and we did at the beginning, but we weren't accepted by our clergy. I invited all of my parish council people to our house, all the past presidents. And I did do many of the things that you're talking about. But there was silence from the clergy to me when we had our things at the beginning. We're trying to reach out. And I think you have to look at the positive on the side, and this is, seeing you here today means something to me. But what's happened to our children? There's a few children here, and we're not thinking about it. Maybe you say we're going to be another 100 years. The last 2 months I've been going through many of the things that I have in our library. And I came across the Goya book that was written by children in the 50s. And I was surprised. It was in our library for 50 years, and I never looked at it with George. And I saw in there some of those children were actually the children who, when they grew up, they started OCL. And they were the ones who went on and had Ciola, where you had over 1,000 people. I want the priests to open up their eyes and see that George was right. We're all over 50. And we've lost our children. You've lost my family. My mother was the only one of 5 children who stayed within the church. My grandchildren are the 4th generation. And they're good kids. But we have to speak and be truthful about what is happening. Matsoukas wrote in our first book about what was going to happen to the church. And we have to accept it. I am Greek background, all Greek, but I'm an American first. And I'm Greek as far as my ethnicity, but we have to be united. And as an American church, and not wait another 100 years. Those people are dead. George Matsoukas is the last one of the group of people and me that have been here for 35 years. Just think, 1951. I have that book here that Goya wrote with all the names. They had Pan-Orthodox in there. They were reaching out. I said, why didn't it happen? Do something. It's like getting a big company. Companies get together. School districts unite. 57 bishops, everybody should unite. My husband went to 10 clergy laity. It's a shame that they can't do something. And it's a shame when they're not all in a meeting. I was a teacher. Get your work done. Because the children are in the church today. But I'm so thrilled to see people here. Paul Tsongas came to one of our first meetings. I have his book at home. What did he do? He got cancer. He had 3 young daughters. He left the church before he died because he said, I have to go to a church so my children will understand. Bradimus. The Greek church always loves all the big politicians. Bradimus was a he went to the Methodist church. How many times do we see in the newspaper, they'll take someone and say, oh, they're Greek. But do we think about our spirituality and what we're doing to our next generation?
Thank you, Roula. Thank you.